I'm joined here by a number of my colleagues, Director of Programs, Jennifer Nyakinya, Program Assistants, Laura Were is here, and I'm sure a number of our members have also joined. And just allow me to take this opportunity to welcome all of you for making the time to participate in this informational session on our inaugural Policy Fellowship Program. Just in terms of housekeeping, we are not going to be unmuting the microphones because we are expecting a lot of people and we don't have a lot of time. And so it might be a bit difficult to to coordinate rather different inputs by audio or video. So as I go through the presentation, very brief presentation, and as the questions arise in your minds, or if you already have questions, please post them in the chat, and then we'll be able to address them. Please no hand raising because we are not going to be taking any contributions by audio. All the contributions will come via the chat, and we'll be able to read them out and address them. All right, I see a number of people are raising their hands already, but we are not able to unmute. Okay, so I'm going to start the presentation. And like I said, if there are any questions, please post them in the chat. And once the presentation is over, we'll try to address your comments and questions. So let me put this in slideshow. Okay. So once again, thank you for joining us. My name is Sam Oti, Secretary General of NIERA. We are based out of Nairobi. That's where our secretariat is located, Nairobi in Kenya, but we have membership across the African continent. And today we're going to be talking about the inaugural Policy Fellowship Program and what we recently launched a call for proposals, and so we're going to be walking you through that. So who are we? NIERA is a Pan-African nonprofit organization, and we're really committed to improving lives and livelihoods by advancing evidence-informed policymaking. Most of us are researchers, and so what we do is we produce data and evidence that is really grounded in the local context where we work, but not just research for the sake of generating knowledge, but research for influencing policy and practice. At the same time, we have an emphasis on enhancing the abilities and capacities of policymakers to use the research and evidence that we use in decision making. We have membership from across the continent. As things stands, we have about 70 members across Africa who have various extensive academic research and international development experience. Even though this particular call only focuses on 3 thematic sectors, agriculture, health, and education, we also have members who have expertise in other sectors such as livelihoods, youth, gender, and other aspects. So let me walk into the overview of the fellowship, or maybe I should start with the objective, which is at the bottom right-hand corner. So the objective of this fellowship really is for us to enhance the ability of African policymakers to utilize research in guiding their decision making. And so the target of this fellowship is are policymakers. And this is a very important point. And I'll try to define what we mean by policymakers so that it is clear in everybody's minds. So it's going to be a 6-week fellowship program for policymakers in West and East Africa. The first week of that 6 weeks will be an online course on evidence-informed policymaking. And it has several modules, modules on how to find evidence, how to use evidence, how to identify what evidence is good and what evidence is not so good. And so really a hands-on crash course, if you will, aimed at the fellowship or the fellows to sort of update them on the latest best practices on evidence-informed policymaking. And then after that, we would have 5 weeks again of the fellowship. And during this time, each fellow will be paired with one of our researchers. And their task over those 5 weeks will be to come up with a concept note, a brief concept note that identifies and addresses a very clear evidence need within the area where that policymaker works. And again, this is such an important point. And that's why we are emphasizing that the target of this fellowship has to be someone who is a policymaker and who is directly responsible for developing policy. Because what we are envisioning is that during this fellowship program, that policymaker would already have some understanding within their government department, maybe they're in a ministry or in some other parastatal, that there is an evidence need that they have that could influence some policy area that they are working on. And so in this 5 weeks of being partnered with a NIERA researcher, together they can co-create a concept note that will respond to that specific evidence need. For now, we are only focusing on 3 thematic areas: education, health, and agriculture. And the reason is not that we're not trying to be discriminatory against other sectors, but these are the areas where we have a critical mass of researchers, because we want to make sure that when we pair you as a fellow, we pair you with a researcher from your area of expertise. In the future, we hope to expand this to other sectors, but for now, and please bear with us, these are the 3 sectors that we'll be focusing on. So what is the eligibility criteria? So again, this is such an important point, the first point, that you have to be a mid-level policymaker. We have received a number of emails asking about this criteria because some people think, okay, what if I work in academia, in a public university? What if I work in a policy think tank, a public policy think tank? How about if I'm in civil society? How about if I'm in a nonprofit, but because of my technical expertise, I work very closely with a ministry to influence and inform policy? Now, unfortunately, that's not what we are looking for. We are very specific in the sense that you have to be working in a government department that is directly responsible for developing policy, either in health, education, or agriculture. So this could be a ministry of health or education or agriculture, for example. This could be some parastatal that is involved in policy making. It could be sub-county, so it doesn't have to be national. It could be sub-national. Maybe if you're for example, here in Kenya, you could be working at the county level, let's say the county department of education, or in other countries, maybe it's at the state level or provincial level or at a district level, or you're in parliament or the presidency, for example. So this has to be clear that we're not looking for policy think tank experts, because even though technically you are in the public, working for a public organization, you're not really the target of this fellowship, because you already have if you're working for a think tank, you already generate evidence. So you are familiar with the process of generating evidence and using it to inform policy. So we are really looking at technical staff, let's say a head of a department or a director or some other mid-level, maybe a director is a bit too senior, but I'll say maybe a head of a unit or some other officer within a department, a government department, in one of those 3 thematic areas. And then the second thing is that you have to be located in one of the countries on this map. Again, we are not trying to be discriminatory. These are where currently we have members located at. And so we want to be able to have members who have the understanding of the context where the fellows are located, so that we can pair them up accordingly. So again, in the future, we hope that as our membership increases over time, we'll be able to, this map will expand. But for now, you have to be located in one of these countries. A bachelor's degree is important. Fluency in English is important, because the course and most of the communication, the online course and most of the communication is going to be English. Again, trying not to sound like a broken record, but we're not trying to be discriminatory again, but it's just a capacity issue for us. Our secretariat is relatively small. We don't have the capacity to operate in French just yet, and other languages, Portuguese, Arabic, other languages on the continent, but hopefully this will change in the future. So please bear with us that for now, we have to conduct this fellowship in English. Of course, you have to have a laptop with good internet access. You have to have a written support from your employer, your government employer. And of course, you need to be self-driven and ready to learn, because in addition to the online course, there will be a lot of activities that you're expected to sort of carry out on your own. So what are the application requirements? So note the deadline, it's May 7th, 5 p.m. East African time, and we're not going to accept any late applications. So please don't wait until the last minute. Try to submit on time or before time. And we're looking for 5 things, really. A personal statement, just 1 page telling us who you are and why you think you need to be part of this fellowship program. Then we need your CV, which should be not more than 4 pages. We need the evidence needs statement. Now, I've highlighted this because this is critical. This is almost, I'll say the highest weighted aspect of our evaluation of your application, in the sense that we need to be sure that you have identified a very clear evidence need in your department or the government parastatal or agency or unit where you work, right? And so you need to articulate very clearly what that evidence need is, how this fellowship program can help you to meet that evidence need, all right? So you might be asking, what's an example of an evidence need? And let's say my background is in health, for example. So let's say you're the head of, the division of, let's say, I don't know, immunization or immunization unit in the Ministry of Health, and you have all this data on immunization, and you want to do some additional analysis on that data, but you don't have the capacity, you don't have the time, right? And you're not just, you don't just want to do that analysis for the sake of it. There are some specific gaps that you want to understand in how you deliver service. And so that evidence need to be about working with a NIERA researcher to analyze that data to meet that gap that you have identified in your unit or in your department or in your division. So this needs to be very clear, because this, to me, is what will really help us see if we can add value as NIERA members to your work. Of course, we need to be sure that your employer supports you. This is also important because that will also let us know if indeed you're a member of that organization. So it's important to have that letter of support. And then 2 references with contact information. We'll not contact the references until we get to the after the interview stage. Again, pay note to the formatting. Sorry to be this prescriptive that we're even talking about font size, but again, from experience, if you don't give this kind of guidance, you might have, somebody using font size 6 and using the minimum margins, and then it becomes difficult to read and evaluate those documents. So that's why we are being quite prescriptive. So what are the benefits of the fellowship? So of course, we want to respect people's time, but again, this is really what we are offering. Excuse is really just a token.
Sorry for interrupting you, but you're still on slide number 4, which was showing the eligibility criteria.
Okay, I don't know. On my side, it looks fine. How about now? Has it changed?
Yes, now we are at application requirements and fellowship benefits.
Okay, I don't know why it didn't change. Sorry about that. Thank you for telling me, Laura. So as I was saying, this is just a token of appreciation for the effort that the fellows are going to put in. So for the 1-week online fellowship, online course rather, you get $50 US per day. And then after the 6 weeks of the fellowship, once we've received your proposal, the proposal that you've developed in collaboration with a NIERA researcher, and we have adjudged that proposal to be to be of good quality, you would receive an honorarium of $1,000. And these are one-off payments. Mentorship from experienced NIERA researchers, I've talked about it. You'll be partnered with a NIERA member. And we hope that with time, you become a champion of evidence-informed policymaking in your country, in your region, in that area where you work. And of course, obviously, all the fellows are going to get a certificate of participation. In terms of the timeline, and I hope the slide has moved along this time. Let's be sure it has moved along. So we are here, 3rd of April, talking about the information session. And the deadline for receiving applications is on 7th May, 5 p.m. East African time. Please take note of that. Late applications will not be accepted. Then we'll have 2 weeks to review all applications, roughly 2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, between 26th of May and 6th of June, we'll have interviews with shortlisted candidates. This will be virtual interviews. And then hopefully by mid-June, on 13th of June specifically, we'll announce those who have been selected into the fellowship program. Now, with the 5 weeks partnership with a NIERA member, would that be virtual or in person? It would be up to the pair to decide, right? You might find yourself paired with someone who is in the same city. Let's say you're both in Dar es Salaam or you're both in Abuja. So that's fine. Then you can decide to meet maybe once or twice during the fellowship and then work virtually for the rest of the time. We'll leave that up to the fellows to decide. There'll be no requirement that you have to be in person at any point in the fellowship, but it will be really up to you and your NIERA research partner to sort of decide how you want to proceed over those the 5 weeks of mentoring. Okay, so I think that is it. We'll come back to this slide, but these are our contact information. The applications need to go to proposals@nieraglobal.org. And if you have any additional questions, send these questions to info@nieraglobal.org, and then you can see our social media channels on the screen. So let me end and stop sharing, and then I think I can start taking some of the questions that we have seen. So far, I'm just seeing people introducing themselves. So please feel free. If there is any question, comment that you have, please post it in the chat and I'll read it out and try to respond. So someone has said, please reshare the contact slide. I will definitely do that. See. I'm just avoiding doing that because I'll not be able to see your chats, your questions when I'm sharing my screen. So please take a photograph or a quick screenshot. And I think the questions are coming in. I can't really see them because I'm sharing my screen, but I'm just giving you another 30 seconds to take a picture or a screenshot of our contacts. And I believe maybe Laura or Jennifer, actually, you can just post this address, the email address in the chat, and maybe even share the link to our LinkedIn page and Twitter and our website. Please share it in the chat. Okay, let me stop sharing. And so I'm seeing some questions. All right, let me see. Okay, quite a number of questions. Start taking them. How many slots are available for the fellowship? There'll be 10 slots across the whole continent. So there are 10 slots that are going to be available. The duration of the fellowship is 6 weeks. So 1 week online course, and then 6 weeks of working virtually or in person with your NIERA partner to develop a proposal. Now, like I said, you don't have to meet physically. You can work And you can decide how you want to work. You can work, maybe you prepare the first draft of the concept note, and then your NIERA member or NIERA fellow helps you edit it or, gives feedback. You decide. You are very flexible, but you have 5 weeks really to work on that concept note. I don't like calling it a proposal because really it's we're not looking for a 10-page, 20-page proposal, just really maybe 4 or 5 pages, of what you have in mind. Let me see. Okay. Is it applicable for PhD candidates? I don't think your educational status applies, right? If you're a PhD candidate who is a policymaker, that's fine. If you're a master's candidate who is a policymaker, that's fine. The only thing is you have to have a bachelor's degree already, right? But it's not for purely students. So we are not looking for just students alone. So if you happen to be a policymaker who happens to be pursuing further education, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Can you shed some more light on what evidence needs entail? So I think I gave an example of this. Maybe I need to repeat it. So I was saying that, let's say I'm the head of the immunization unit in the Ministry of Health right here in Kenya, right? And I have all this data collected routinely, let's say monitoring and evaluation data that has been collected routinely through the health information system in Kenya. And I have all this routine immunization data. But I've not had time to do some more advanced analysis on that data because just maybe because of lack of capacity or lack of resources. So, but I know that if we can do that analysis, it can give me some insights that will help service delivery in terms of implementing immunization programs in the country. So maybe that could be an opportunity to partner with a NIERA a researcher to help you do some advanced data analysis on that data set, if it's publicly available or if it's something that you can share. And then, the insights from that work, that analysis can help inform your work. Of course, we are mindful about sensitivities around data ownership and whatnot. So of course, you have to be careful about what kind of data you work with. Sometimes the data might not exist. You might just have identified, what, there's a gap. We don't understand XYZ in our ministry. So can we design a study, a primary study that will help us understand this issue better? It could be a cross-sectional survey that you need to do or whatnot. Or maybe you've heard of an intervention. Let's say you're in agriculture and you've heard of this technology that will help make the lives of farmers better, for example. And so you're really interested to see whether the ministry, your ministry or your department can roll out that technology. So maybe your proposal would be, let's write a proposal on testing and evaluating that technology. And then maybe if that works, then you can convince the minister or whoever to now approve, budgeting and financing. So again, I'm just, I think they call it spitballing here, just brainstorming and saying that it's really up to you. That's why it's very important for you to be embedded. So we are not looking up for people who are outside the system, let's say outside government, and who are giving advice to the government. We're not looking for those kind of people. You need to be someone who is embedded within the government, so you know where the shoe pinches, let me put it that way, as far as evidence gaps are concerned. That's why it's very important not to be an outsider. Okay. I seek clarification. Does the document need to be sent as one document or separate documents? We didn't state, so you can do either. I personally would prefer if you can send it as one document. So there's a way you can have different PDFs and merge them all together and email it as one document. That will make our lives easier. But if that's too complicated for you, feel free to just attach them as individual documents in one email and then send it to proposals@nieraglobal.org. Thank you. Will the Secretariat pair fellows with the applicants, or how will it happen? So that's an excellent question. So in the call, we gave some options. We said, all right, perhaps while you're thinking of your application, if you go to NIERA's website, on our members page, you see the members that we have, and you might find one whose expertise matches with what you're trying to do. You can let us know, send an email to info@nieraglobal.org. We will ask the member if they are available, and then we'll get back to you. And so already that matching can take place before you even submit your proposal. But please make sure, or your application, right? But please make sure that you are the one who submits that application, not the NIERA members. And make sure that you are the one who works on that. They can help you out. We are not saying they can't. But ultimately, the submission and during the interviews, the defense of that application, it rests on you as the policy maker, right? But afterwards, but that's not mandatory. You might say, I just want to apply. I'll leave it to the secretariat to pair me with a fellow. And we're going to do that. We're going to look at the thematic area you've selected, the topic you've selected, and then we're going to look for members that match that area, right? Yes, so that's very key. That's really critical. Of course, it doesn't have to be a perfect match. So you might be wondering, what if there's no match? And that's why I said it's really important that we focus on the 3 thematic areas where we have a lot of members. We have lots of members who have expertise in health, lots of members in education and agriculture. So there's a wider pool, right? If we had broadened it up to other disciplinary areas, we might struggle to find the fellows to match you with. And that's why for now, we are focusing on those areas where we have a lot of members. Where are we going to submit the needed? There's an email address. I see a question from Labaran Magaji. There's an email address, proposals@nieraglobal.org. Can university staff who highly engage in research apply for this fellowship? No. So that's what I was saying. We are looking for policymakers, not academics. You have to be a policymaker. Now, those are not mutually exclusive. You can be both. You can happen to be a researcher, whom an academic or a university staff who has recently taken on, maybe you've gone on sabbatical and you're now working in the Ministry of Education, or you took time off, or that we might consider. But if you're purely a university researcher or lecturer, then this fellowship is not it's not for you. There are other fellowships which we can talk about. If you visit our website or our sister organization, the Center for Effective Global Action, there might be some opportunities there that are focused on academics and researchers. And the policy only focus on agriculture, health, and education. Yes, and I think I've explained why, is because this is where we have a critical mass of fellows in those 3 thematic areas. And somebody says, am I qualified based on my professional? No, unfortunately, we can't comment on individual cases. So please read the call and make that determination yourself if you're qualified. I just completed master's in research and public policy, working as a public policy analyst in the CSOs. Now, this makes you ineligible because a CSO is not a government agency. All right. Can the proposal build on gaps identified? Absolutely. In fact, we even encourage this because if it's generally easy, not easier, but perhaps more affordable, let me put it that way, to do secondary research, right? So if there are already gaps you've identified and if there's already data, then it might be, then your proposal, if you're successful and you come into the fellowship, your proposal, there are higher chances of finding funding for it, I think, because you're doing secondary data analysis. Obviously, this is all relative, right? It depends on, who the funding, where the funding is coming from and all that. Are there other ways through which one can participate in the work of NIERA? Absolutely. In fact, I don't know, Jennifer, Laura, if we have an Africa Evidence Summit, though I'm not sure if we are still accepting applications, but it's going to take place right here in Nairobi in June. And it's an event that we have every year where we bring together academics, researchers, policymakers, to come and share ideas on evidence and on various development issues across Africa. I see someone has put their details, Michael Kyoko. Hey, thank you. Someone is still saying, I don't understand evidence needs. I think I've clarified that twice. I hope it's understood now. Can we have more than one applicant from one organization? Absolutely. So there's no restriction on how many applicants. So you might even be neighbors. You might even be sharing an office in the Ministry of Education or department or some government agency, and all of you want to apply. That's really up to you. There's no restriction. What is your plan to work with universities? Yes, NIERA is also a research organization, and we already work with a lot of universities in implementing the research and the policy engagement work that we do. In fact, up until this year, our secretariat was hosted at the United States International University right here in Nairobi, and we've worked with several other universities in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in obviously here in Kenya and across the continent. Another question of an instructor who works in the public university, but Ministry of Agriculture. Unfortunately, again, like I said, yeah, you are not the target of this. We are looking for people in the ministry, not people who are working with the ministry. How many hours per week should we set aside? So we had stated that I think in the call that for the first, and let me just clarify, I think you need around 20 hours for the first week. That's the online course, and then 8 hours a week for the 5 weeks of writing the proposal. But again, this is really up to you. If you work very fast, you might not need 8 hours a week. You might need shorter to work on the concept note with your NIERA partner. Hi, we are working in research as a knowledge translation division, and we have been supporting MOH by policy brief. Again, this is not who we are looking for. So you see, you already have the expertise. If you're already writing policy brief, if you're already writing doing knowledge translation, then you're not the target. The target are people who don't routinely do this or routinely have the capacity to do this, and so they need their capacity enhanced or strengthened, right? So just to be clear, that's the target. Can academics contribute as mentors at least for the purposes of collaboration? For now, we are only partnering because it is a short fellowship. We can only partner the policymakers with NIERA researchers. But in the future, there might be an opportunity to even expand that. And in fact, what we envisage is that when the NIERA partner and the policymaker come together and work on a proposal, as they're working on that proposal, I'm sure they're already thinking about who they need to partner with. Two people cannot implement a whole research project, right? So I'm sure they would already be thinking about who else do we need to bring on board to implement this proposal, assuming we can get funding for it, right? So that's where other researchers, CSOs, other stakeholders can be included as part of the project team that would implement that project should it be funded. So the question is NIERA going to fund the proposals that we get from the pair, the NIERA member and the policymaker? It depends. So if it's for really small proposals, we might have some resources. Let's say you already have the data, you just need to take off some time to do some analysis, or you need the support of a statistician or something, then maybe NIERA might be able to find the resources to help you. But if you want to do like a randomized control trial, right, that is a big commitment, but it's an important one. And what we can do as NIERA is maybe to help you identify funding sources. So we might approach other funders and say, by the way, here's this great proposal. They want to do a randomized control trial on education or agriculture. It's going to cost this much. This is the team. The policymaker is one of the principal investigators. he or she has buy-in from their ministry. Can you fund this, right? And maybe we'll find funding for that, right? And even if we don't, we'll keep shopping around until we find support for that idea. But of course, it depends on the strength of the idea. So you also need to make sure you submit a very strong proposal at that point. About the letter of support, what should it entail? Just a basic letter of support saying, to whom it may concern, or you might want to be specific to the NIERA Secretariat. This so person is our employer. He's the head of the unit of XYZ. He's been or she has been with us for, I don't know, 10 years, and we've learned about their intention to apply for this fellowship, and we'll support them. They have our support to go ahead and apply, and they'll receive our support while they're completing the fellowship as well. So it's a very, I think nothing too complicated, but just, of course, affirming that you are employed by them and this is what you do with that employer. And then that they support your application, so that it's not that you're doing it behind their back. It's not that you're going to be stealing time that you should be working for your employer to do this fellowship. They have given you their blessing, let me put it that way, to go ahead and join this fellowship. Evidence needs questions are still coming up, but I think I've answered that. I'm an education researcher, and this is informative. My question is, what is the scope of the education theme? Do you have focus on level of education? Do financing education also fall within education scope? I think it's very broad. So the level of education, I think, doesn't really matter, because again, the experts that we have, the researchers that we have different levels of expertise, or have expertise on different aspects of education. Let me put it that way. So there's no restriction on the specific kind or thematic area of education or of agriculture or of health. All right. Is it possible to attend the training without payment for people not eligible? Unfortunately, we can't do that for now, because we want a group that we can manage during the training session. So it has to be a small group that we can give our attention to. So for now, it's not going to be open to everyone. Thank you. Are you eligible if you work with an NGO? I think I've addressed this. This is no. If you work with an NGO but collaborate closely with the MOH, no, that's not. You have to be working for the MOH, right? As a lecturer at a public university, am I eligible? Again, that's no, except if you also have employment in a government agency. Yeah, I expected this question. Someone is saying from a research in the Ethiopia Amaro Hansen Research Institute is a federal MOH clinical research agency with much experience in policy briefing and evidence synthesis. Yeah, so this is an important point, right? Because you can be a public think tank, working for a public think tank. Now, but think about it. You are not the person we are looking for, because you already do what we are trying to support policymakers with. You already generate evidence, so this fellowship will be, in fact, if you go through the online class, you'll be bored, because this is not your level. You're way above that level, right? So that's why if you're already in a think tank or some research institute, even if it's a public or government, you're not the target of this, because our expectation is that this will be too, you already do what we are trying to do, right? You already do that. So it will not be very helpful to you to be a fellow, I think. I have submitted an application, but I haven't received any acknowledgement. Also, can I resubmit my application to further enhance it as a result of today's meeting? That's a good question. We didn't think about that. Usually we only expect one application, but maybe would accept this one time. Maybe you can write and say you want to withdraw the initial application, and then as long as you submit a new one before the deadline, I think it's fine. I realized from your explanation that fellowship is only for government developmental sectors. But my question here, are individuals from government research institutes, again, I think I've answered that. If you do research, you have the capacity. What are we going to tell you about how to generate evidence, right? So that's why we're saying you're not eligible. Can junior research consultants apply? You're a researcher, not a policymaker, so that doesn't apply. I understand that this fellowship is designed for policymakers. As an academic with expertise in research and strong interest in policy analysis, I'm curious about how researchers and academics fit into space. How does the program engage scholars in shaping, informing, or evaluating policy? And what role do you see for academics in bridging research and policy? So this is what NIERA is all about. And this is really what we are trying to do, right? To sort of work with policymakers so that they elevate the use of evidence in informing decision making. And so, like I said, as we go forward, we expect that we expect that those policymakers that go through this fellowship become champions of the use of evidence in decision making. And that as they work on their proposals, they'll think about other academics, other researchers that can help them to implement that project should it find funding. Do the proposal writing focus on our field of study? Yes. So if you're a policymaker in health, obviously, we expect that when you're working on the concept note with your NIERA partner, that it will be on health. That's not to say you can't try others. It's just I don't know why you don't want to do that, but it can be multidisciplinary. So let me not put a restriction. So you can say, for example, okay, yes, I'm in health, but I want to write a proposal that looks at the intersection of, let's say, agriculture and health. That's fine. We can't argue with that. That's a good idea, and maybe to have impact on policy. So why not? But of course, as someone who works for my day job, I work for a funding agency. We want to see that you have the skills to back the proposal, right? So if you are in health and you're submitting a proposal in education, why? Like how can you justify to us that you have the skills and the expertise to work in that space? Except you're partnering with somebody else who has that, then sort of makes sense. So just be mindful of that. Is the application after online training or during training? No, the application is before. You apply before May 7th, and then if you're selected, we'll inform you by June, middle of June. And then those who are selected will have 1 week of online training and 5 weeks of mentoring with, and partnership with a NIERA member to develop a concept note. Okay. What area of bachelor's degree? Like me, I have a bachelor's degree in education, specialized. Yeah, I don't think it matters. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, you're qualified. I'm currently in the final stage of my PhD, and I'm delighted to inform you. Okay. Yes, this is great, but you're a researcher, so I think I've answered this question. We are looking for policymakers. Still some more questions. Finished my master's in public health and I have research experience, but not policymaking. So unfortunately, you're not who we are looking for. What is the long-term follow-up strategy so as to remain in touch with NIERA after the completion of the fellowship? This is a great question. So I think we hope that after the fellowship, you will keep in touch. Like I said, with that proposal that you submit, we are going to work with you. It's not our property. It remains your property as the policymaker. But we and the NIERA partner that the NIERA member that we partner with you, we're going to actively look for ways to get funding for that proposal. And even if we don't succeed, there'll probably be many other opportunities. So we'll have you in our database if you consent to it, and there'll probably be opportunities. We'll probably be part of our future Africa Evidence Summits that we'll be hosting. We have a number of other initiatives that will involve researchers and policymakers. We hope that you'll be part of it. And then obviously we also as NIERA will be implementing research projects. And so if there's a project we want to implement in health in your country, we can come back to you as a policymaker and say, can you be one of the principal investigators or maybe serve in the advisory committee? So there'll be opportunities. We are not seeing this as a one-off. We hope that relationship will continue long after the fellowship, and that you become a champion, of evidence-informed policymaking in your department, in your area of work, and even maybe encourage for future cohorts, because we hope that this will be a continuous. We'll be having cohorts ever so often, that you even recommend the fellowship to other policymakers in your spheres of influence. Can I submit with a colleague, or is one person? Yeah, one person, one submission. Okay. And if I have to work with a partner organization, you don't need a partner. So we are not judging your proposal at this point in terms of the research that you want to do. We are judging you on your own as an individual, right? So we'll be evaluating you as an individual, right? What is your experience in evidence-informed policymaking, and what is the evidence need that you've identified? That's not to say you can't mention who you partner with. If you want to fill up, if you want to address the evidence need, you can mention that. But remember, you have only one page, so I think that page should focus on on sort of selling yourself as someone who has identified a very clear evidence need and who will be able to benefit and apply from what you learn from this fellowship and apply it to trying to meet that evidence need. I think I've addressed the question on eligibility of university lecturers. Please check for the eligibility criteria, mid-level. Yeah, I think I've addressed this. And yeah, I think mid-level is a very generous definition, because it's hard to say who is mid-level per se. But I mean, we don't expect, if you're an intern, for example, in the Ministry of Education, that you would apply for this. And that's because I mean, you probably don't have the experience yet to really be able to move policy influencing forward, right? So I'm not saying you shouldn't apply. You could probably still apply, but to be honest, if you're an intern or an entry-level person in the ministry versus, let's say, a head of a unit, the head of a unit is probably going to get more marks, I think, in the evaluation, right? They're probably going to be able to articulate the evidence needs or demonstrate that if that evidence need is met, because of their relatively senior position in that department, they will be able to influence policy, right? They can make that argument stronger than if you just started, if you're an intern or if you're like a temporary staff. So I'm not going to say don't apply if you're not mid-level, but just to be completely transparent, I think we are looking for people that have achieved a certain level within their careers, and they can convince us that if that evidence need is met, they will be able to carry it forward and influence decision making within their departments. And as an intern, or an early career person, it might be harder for you to make that argument. But I'm not going to say don't apply. Does it work for members of a certain association working as freelancers? No. Do agricultural researchers, are they eligible? No, except if you're a policymaker working in the government. What are requirements needed? I think we've already stated that. Please refer to the call document, the call for proposals, letter of support. I've talked about that. Is a researcher working to generate information for policymakers at a researcher? I've addressed this. That's no. Consultant working for government or embedded in GOK projects, that's no, because your position is temporary. Okay, I think I've already answered. Sorry, I think I was going back to questions I'd already addressed. Sorry about that. Somebody says, okay, are you looking for something I am unable to implement as a policymaker in the ministry, or something that the ministry is unable to? In this case, it becomes higher scope. We'll leave you to decide, right? Because you are the one who is there. Where can you make a change? That's the key thing, right? If it's something that is so high level that it doesn't matter what evidence you generate, then you will not be able to really convince us that this fellowship will add value in that sense. So think about something you can influence within your department, within your unit. so don't go too high that it becomes unattainable and unrealistic. You've all heard of the SMART objectives: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So think about something that you can achieve within a reasonable time frame. All right. Can legal aids, legislative aids, working with policymakers apply? We said yes. That is because you have, by your unique position, you can influence legislation. Where is the headquarters of NIERA? That is, but again, let me go back to the hoping that your employer is that legislative arm. So that needs to be clear, that you're not there on secondment or something, that you're employed. So if it's the Parliament of Kenya, for example, even though you're a legal aid or legislative aid, you're employed by the government of Kenya, by the Parliament of Kenya. Where's the headquarters of NIERA? Somebody has answered that. That's Nairobi. Are there other ways I can get involved with NIERA? I think I've already mentioned that. As a clinical dietitian in a parastatal, am I eligible? Perhaps, if it's obviously a government parastatal, perhaps, and if you can demonstrate that you can influence policy in dietetics or in nutrition, I wouldn't say no. I'm working for the Nigerian Police Force. I have a bachelor's degree in English, currently pursuing my master's degree in English language. Am I eligible? The police is a public organization, but of course there has to be what policy. You need to be able to articulate what policy within the Nigerian police force, for example, that you might have some opportunity to influence, right? So is again, some discretion is required, right? For you to be able to call yourself a policymaker, you need to be able to demonstrate why you're calling yourself a policymaker, right? Even if you work for a government agency. For example, let's say you're in the Ministry of Health, but you're the person that serves tea, right? Now, again, not being respectful of that job, but someone who serves tea is not going to influence policy. So you wouldn't call yourself a policymaker, right? Even though you work in the Ministry of Health or Education. So again, some wisdom, I think, is required as you think about how you can present yourself as a policymaker. It's not just about just working for a government agency, right? It's not just that. I'm the chief executive officer of a courthouse, a Lagos state agency. I'm not really familiar, but again, going back to the point that I just made, it's not just about working for the government, right? Are you a policymaker within that place, that department, that division that you work, and demonstrate to us why you think you're a policymaker? So it's not just, don't just say I work for the government, so automatically I'm a policymaker. It doesn't always apply, right? You need to be able to demonstrate that. And that's where in your personal statement, you need to be able to make that demonstration. What is the main focus of the fellowship program in the health? There's no area. Health is, all the three sectors are broad. I work at a county assembly. Am I eligible? Potentially, if you can demonstrate that you're a policymaker. So it's not just working for the county assembly, but hypothetically, yes, I would say yes, you're eligible. Is a teacher working with government eligible to apply? I would say no, except maybe you work for the Teacher Service Commission, for example, if you have that and you're directly involved in policies around teachers' working conditions or education or whatnot. So again, some discretion is important. Does it apply to freelance associations? No. I work for an NGO working directly with government institutions. I think I've said no. Where is the link to apply? There's no link to apply. There's an email address which has been posted up in the chat, proposals@nieraglobal.org. So send the documents there. Again, on the issue of whether you're a researcher already, again, I've said if you're a researcher that is supporting a government agency, this is not for you. You're a researcher, so evidence is what you do. That's not what we are looking for. I work with a development NGO. Again, if you're not in the government ministry, I wouldn't say you're a policymaker. Okay. So think this fellowship is for politicians. That's interesting. So I think there's often this confusion. Policymakers are not necessary. Some politicians can be policymakers, but not all policymakers are politicians. So if you're the head of the unit in the Ministry of Education, you're employed as a civil servant, yeah, right, and you influence policy, because let's say there's a policy that's being developed. It's not the politician, it's not the MP, it's not the minister that is going to draft that policy document. It's you as that technical staff in the ministry who is going to draft the policy, and then the politicians can say yes or say no, right? So we know that the politicians politicking is really out of our sphere of influence, in the sense that politicians have so many other ways they operate. But a policymaker, you can use evidence, right? You can use rigorous scientific evidence to inform your policy and the policies that you're working on. And so that's the level that we are interested in. So it's not about politicians, right? It's really about the more technocrats, right? I think that's the word within public spaces. Can the relationship with NIERA extend to turning the proposal to a research paper, ultimately publishing? Yes, we would hope so. We would hope that if we get funding for the project, and you and the policymaker and the NIERA partner, the policymaker, you as the policymaker and the NIERA partner, and other people you bring on board, if you raise funding from that proposal and you implement it, we hope that you would publish. You could publish in a journal, you can do blogs, you can do policy briefs. There's so much that can come out of that, which will highly encourage, and as a secretariat, we'll be happy to support. NIERA, the RFA is not accessible on the website. Laura, please check that that's not the case. Must I be working with an agency of government? I think I've addressed that. Is a technical staff working to generate information for policymakers at research institutes? You know you're not eligible. I think I've made that point. I'm an advocate for policy change, working with civil society. I said, no, that's not who we're looking for. Then the question of mid-level, again, I think we could have provided more clarity, but I'll say you would have to have worked for some certain number of years, right? And what kind of position do you occupy? So it's up to you to make that case for us that you're mid-level, right? Again, if you're an intern and you at ministry and you now want to tell us you're mid-level, that would be a hard story to sell, right? But if you're head of a unit, or you're a technical officer or program officer, you know, in the ministry, then it's easier to make that case. You can say, I've worked for this number of years, I've risen up the ranks, this is where I started, this is where I am, so I consider myself a mid-level. Then you've made a case. I now consider myself a mid-level staff. You've made a case, right? So again, some discretion. We didn't want to be too rigid on that, because what is mid-level in one place might not be mid-level. So maybe heads of departments in some places are really senior, and in maybe some other areas it's mid-level. So we didn't want to be too restrictive on that. So it's up to you in your personal statement to justify why you think you're mid-level, right? So again, some discretion is required. Okay. Civil society advocate, no, you can't apply. Again, I've answered the People Research Institutes, no. Head of department in a hospital setting under the Ministry of Health, who also serves as a policymaker within the hospital. Now, that is tricky. If we are not looking at a policymaker a policymaker now, the policy in that hospital will only affect the people who go to that hospital, right? But a policymaker in the Ministry of Health will, for example, will apply to the general population, right? Or if it's at a subnational level, everyone at that maybe provincial level or district level. So if you're a policymaker within your institution, that would be a hard sell, right? Even if you're working for a public institution, that would be a hard sell, right? So just think about that carefully before you apply. What do you have a plan with other theme, not policy in general level? I'm not sure I understand. Maybe you're asking why we choose specific thematic areas. And I think I made that case that these are areas where we have a significant number of researchers, NIERA researchers, so we can partner you with them and they can give you guidance. Remember, this is supposed to be a capacity strengthening exercise. So if you're in a thematic area that we don't have expertise, then we can't help, with your proposal, for example. So this is why we are limited into the areas for now. A policymaker at a Food and Drug Authority, I would say yes, for sure. Policymaker as a Food and Drug Authority, yes, you are eligible. Just trying to go through the questions again to see if there's anything else.
Excuse me, Sam. Other than
Yes.
that, there were a few questions posted on Q&A.
Where is the Q&A? I don't see it. Is there another but there's another
Yes, just after
not in the
chat, there's
chat?
Q&A.
Oh.
For instance, someone asked,
why don't you just read it out? I can't see it. Why don't you read it
okay.
out?
Am I eligible if I work for another institute, my second national country, rather than my eligible country?
I don't know if I understand that. So they are asking if they work in a non-eligible country, or
the other institute that they work at is in their second national country rather than their eligible country.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand, but if I'm getting it correctly, so again, let's go back to the intent. The intent is that we can partner you with somebody who is familiar with your context. So and the only way we can do that is if we have a member in your context. So just think about it that way. I hope that answers the question. So if you say for example, we don't have anyone in Algeria. So if you are from Algeria, we can't partner you with anyone because we don't have anyone based in Algeria, right? But if you are Algerian working in one of the countries where we have a NIERA member, say let's say you're an Algerian working in Senegal, and you're working as a policymaker, that is probably very unlikely, but let's say in the off chance that that is the situation, then you are eligible because you're a policymaker in Senegal. Where you come from is inconsequential. What is consequential, I think, is that you are based there and you are a policymaker in the public sector, right? And I think we are pretty confident that for you to be a policymaker in a country, it's not an accident, right? And you've definitely gone through a process for you to get to that level, and I would say you've earned your stripes to be a policymaker in a country. If you happen not to be originally from that country, for you to even get to that space, you've earned it. Let me put it that way. I think. How many pages? Okay, as I'm an administrator as a university and HOD, am I eligible? That will be a no. How frequent the virtual meeting in a week? We're going to advise on that. We anticipate that for the online course, you need about 2 to 3 hours a day. So it's not going to be the whole day. We know that's just not manageable for virtual classes. So you'll probably have some, maybe 2, 3 hours, and then you have 2 days, then you have a 1 day break, then you have another 2 days. So let's say you do Monday and Tuesday, 2 hours each, and then Thursday, Friday, 2 hours each or 3 hours each. So we recognize that it's not like an in-person meeting where you can go 3 days, full days. Usually virtual meetings is very difficult to have 8 hours of meetings of a meeting. So we will be mindful of that. And then with your NIERA partner, is up to you to decide how often you guys want to meet. You might say we're going to meet once a week for 1 hour to just discuss progress. That will be very flexible. We are not going to police that engagement between both of you. You are both adults, work with a schedule that recognizes that both of you are fully employed, most likely. So it's most likely that you, as the policymaker, is fully employed and your NIERA partner is fully employed. So you have to work around your availability. So we're not going to police that. You can decide to even work on weekends I'm not encouraging it, work-life balance. I'm a big advocate of work-life balance, but maybe that's all that works for you and you're fine with that, then by all means, okay? How many pages are allowed in the concept? We'll get to that, don't worry. For the application for the fellowship, we've already given the guidelines. 1 page, a personal statement, CV that is not more than 4 pages, 1 page evidence needs statement, and then your support letter and your 2 references. For the concept note, if you become a fellow, we'll give you more details about what. It's not going to be long. Like I said, we don't expect you to write 20, 30 pages of a proposal, probably be 4 to 5, but we'll give you guidance on that. Brand and marketing manager, am I eligible? I don't know. Are you a policymaker in a government department? If yes, then yes. So it depends. I don't know. I need additional context. Laura, is there any other question in the Q&A? I can't see it, so I have to just rely on you to read it out.
There was one from Christopher who asked, what programs do you offer for the people who are not working with the government but very interested in policy issues? And number 2, what about the person working with international conservation organization and very interested in policy issues in the near future?
Yes, I think they're related. Again, NIERA, like I said, we are a research and evidence organization. Policy engagement, capacity building, these are big areas of our work. So just look out, join our social media, follow our social media pages. There'll be opportunities in the future that will come out, either for research opportunities that we will announce, research partnerships, or knowledge translation events. I mentioned earlier the Africa Evidence Summit, which we organize annually. So there'll be opportunities in the future, and even us as NIERA, as we work on writing proposals, research proposals, our members they work collaboratively. They reach out to other universities, other researchers, other civil society, people from different sectors to work on the proposals. So there's that opportunity going forward, right? I think I've answered the question on evidence need. Public universities are government entities. Why are they exempted? They are not policymakers in the strict sense. So you are an academic, you're teaching, you're generating evidence. That's not to say you can't be both. And again, so I think I made that point. You can, let's say you're an academic, but maybe you've taken time off sabbatical and you're now in the Ministry of Education, for example. That's fine. Of course, we need to see a letter from the Ministry of Education saying you are employed here for this duration and this is what you do, right? So you have to make that case. But remember, this is a competitive process. So you're competing against someone who has maybe spent 10 years in the ministry, let's say, for example, or in parliament, right? And so you're competing against that kind of person, for example. So if you are just spending on sabbatical or just spending, a few months, it might be harder for you to make a case as to why this fellowship should be for you versus somebody who has basically spent the last 5-10 years in that department, that government department, right? So this is, and again, also what I said earlier, if you are a researcher, this is not for you. When we talk about the online course, for example, which is going to take people what are, the types of evidence, how to use evidence. These are things that as a researcher, you already know. So it's not going to help you, right? That's so that's why it doesn't even make sense. Assuming we even say, okay, yes, but even for you, you will not find much value from that, I think. Well, not I think, I know. I mean, I've seen the curriculum, so I know that it's not, if you're a researcher, you're overqualified. Let me put it that way. If you're already a researcher, an academic who uses evidence, generates evidence, you'll be overqualified for that. Any other questions, Laura? We still have a bit of time. We had promised we'll go till 1:30, so we have about 18 minutes. But if there are no questions, I'm happy to give
questions,
people back their time. Yeah.
The other questions are mostly related to what you've already answered.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay, everyone. No, thank you so much. I think we've had over 100 people on this call. Thank you so much to everyone for making time. I know it might be a bit disappointing that not all of you are eligible, but there will be opportunities to work with NIERA, and we hope to work with you in the future. And we hope that even if you're not eligible, that you would reach out to policymakers that you've worked with. I saw a number of comments of people who say we provide evidence to policymakers. We work for research institutions that are public. That means you have access to policymakers. That means you know these policymakers, these technocrats. So why not, share this call for proposals with them and encourage them to apply, because hopefully down the line it will make your life easier, because now these policymakers know the value of using evidence in decision making, and so it probably will contribute to making your role as a technical advisor to government. It probably make your role even much more effective, right? So would encourage you, even if you're not eligible, please spread the word, use your networks, encourage the policymakers you've worked with in the past to apply. Not politicians, policymakers, right? I know, I think I've tried to explain the nuance that of the difference between the two. So someone is still asking for the documents. Please again refer to the call for proposals. You need a personal statement. You need your CV. You need evidence needs statement. You need a support letter from your employer, and then you need 2 references. You need to list 2 references, and of course, be sure to in your personal statement or in your evidence needs statements, be sure to tell us which thematic area you're applying to, so that it's immediately obvious to us. All right. So if it's health, if it's agriculture, if it's education, and we've left those broad. So it doesn't have to be higher education or postgraduate or whatever. It doesn't have to be communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases. It's very broad. Any area within those 3 thematic areas is acceptable. Okay, so I think we'll close now. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And thank you to my colleagues, Jennifer and Laura, for helping set this up. I see there are a number of NIERA members that also attended. We're really excited with partnering you with the policymakers. Thank you for making the time. And we are hoping that this is going to be a great initiative that will contribute to strengthening the evidence ecosystem in this beautiful continent. So as we say in Kiswahili, asanteni sana, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.